كده احسن. Hello? Yeah. Okay, back again. It's a 90-minute session. We'll have two presentations, one in the beginning, one by mid-session. We'll have two Q&As, hopefully, one by mid-session, one by the end. I'd like to introduce my panel. First of all, our host, Mountain View, Engineer Amr Sulaiman. He's the founder and chairman of Mountain View. Her Excellency, Dr. Sahar Atiyah, parliamentarian, and represents the educational and scientific research in the Egyptian Parliament. Also a professor of architecture and urban planning, Cairo University. Dr. Hind Farrouh, environmental expert, works for the HBRC, and she's the director of the Egyptian UN PV National Program, photovoltaic program. Last but not least, Ms. Victoria Burrows, director of the Advancing Net Zero Program for the WGBC. Myself, I'm Ahmed Larian. I'm an architect, professional sustainable development, and it's my honor to be hosting and moderating this session, inshallah. Okay, so we'll start with a presentation from Mr. Amr Sulaiman.
Just talk.
لا لا presentation شغالة على طول وبعدين نحط الكلام فيه.
يعني مش هتكلم.
اوكي.
سوا اوكي they want to.
Okay, thank you. I myself have lots of questions, to be honest. Okay, so I think I'd start by the thing that people centric, the concept of the word. Where is it from? Does it have a reference, maybe? How did you work on it?
Okay, first of all, I want to welcome all of the respective guests and to explain what's the silent presentation. And it's good that with all that crowd to have like 5 minutes silent, which is good, make us think about a lot of things. So to simplify what we are presenting, what's different, what we represent is very simple. We believe that to keep the planet in a good condition, we have to start with people. People who destroy the planet, and people can improve the planet, and everything is about people. So when we do everything, we just remember that the title is Let's Go People First. Because as long as we go, we always get, busy of a car, of a job, of everything, but we don't care about ourselves. So when you care about yourself, when you care about people, you care about everything around, because people are the main hero of that case. So that's what we do, is focusing on people, people, people. And then everything comes. So even when we did like iCity, which is we did like a I would say it in East and West Cairo, like 500 acres, two cities, same size like Monaco City. We call it I-City. And it's not about the technology to say I for intelligent or smart. We don't believe about, by the way, about smart city or smart home, because if you go to hotel and have a smart room, you always get a mess, and you want to find your switch light or with TV and everything. So we care about how to make a happy room or a happy city. That's why we said I City, because I stand for me and you and for every one of us. I is coming first. And when you take the right title, you will take the right goal. So every time our North Star is I, which is every one of us. And that's all about this presentation. It's like working from 6 years now with a company called Delivering Happiness in the United States, and a company from France doing software for us for that, how to make cities in a different way. Why? Because if we see the first industrial revolution, which make us come today and try to solve what happened. The first industrial revolution have many good sides, like aeroplanes make us come here today. And it's okay, my voice is fine. Yes, it's okay. As we are speaking now, if this guy, this beautiful man, didn't come here, will not solve the issue in technology. So it's about all about people. So people will solve everything. So that's why we care. Going back when we said about the first industrial revolution, was that the pollution to solve 20. Okay, some housekeeping. It's okay. Otherwise, that's how you know. I think when we started to talk about the first industrial revolution, like the topic, wow, it's very important. It's not going. So that's caused all what we have now to fix. We see that in the fourth industrial revolution, now we have a very good about technology, and our mobile can make us connect with everyone in the world and make our life easy, but also had the dark side. The dark side we see is the mental health of everyone. The dark side is being in a bubble or living in a bubble. That's why we care about human being. That's why we care about, we don't want to hear and come back like 20, 30 years, try to solve what happened in the fourth industrial revolution. We have to start from now. And when we started this journey, we found out the issue is not in the technology company, the issue in us. In us, I'm a builder, doing like a real estate, an architect. The issue is our industry is very behind the technology. We are very not advanced. We are very boring. I'm sorry, I'm talking about myself. Why? Because if you see this room or this exhibition or your hotel, and you go back like 100 years ago, all what you see is lots of cosmetic or like makeup for the room, but not the real core of the room or technology and how to make you advance, excited. And all the time we complain and we blame the technology. No, they are advanced, they are smart. They make people now got in the technology and be in that small machine because they use that way of thinking. So what we did is using the same way. We think about hardware and software and using all the technology. And we got a lot of people from the technology companies just for the analogy of hardware and software. And that's what we did for 5-6 years with many people around the world, like DH, Delivering Happiness, which have the science of happiness, how to do it physically. And that's where we talk all this panel. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't know. Could Dr. Sahar give us a comment on the happiness thing? Okay, yeah, if the panels can come up, I think it'd be more convenient. Dr. Hind, Ms. Victoria, yeah.
It's a happiness panel, so
Yeah, because from what I know is that Dr. Sahar Atiyah, you've been introduced and you've been working on happy cities and things like that. So if you've got any feedback on that.
Thank you, Ahmed, and thank you for inviting me to this session. I've not been working on happy cities, but I've been working on cities in general. And I like very much the idea of people-centered, actually, because this is always what we design cities for citizens. And I recall also the main quote of Shakespeare, what is the city but people? So he always mentioned this interaction between people and city. But of course, at the end of the day, when you do this surveys to check, there is the World Report about happy cities that was issued last March in 2022. And they did this survey, and they really have the 10 best happiest people in cities. And 5 of them were the Nordic countries. And the rest were in Europe in general, except maybe one city, maybe in Australia, I don't remember. And we have also the 10 worst cities that were most in Africa, in Africa. So the concept of happy city is now growing, but happiness is very relative, and you cannot say it's about satisfaction. So someone can be happy in his community, which is not really at the high level. Someone can be happy in his informal area. Someone can be happy in his social housing, and someone else cannot be happy in a very good community. So let's talk more about sustainability, which is more relevant to the discussion today. And let's agree that sustainability is not an option anymore. We have to really work on sustainable in all communities. And let's agree also that sustainability has to have new parameters and new definitions related very much to awareness, to governance, and to regulations and finance. So this is now the new sustainability issue that we should need. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what you're saying is that it's not optional anymore, but could you relate between having a happy city and having a more sustainable city? Because I think this is what we intend to get towards in this discussion, working on the human being as the center, as our focal point, towards a more sustainable city, hence impacting or not impacting the climate, or impacting it in a better way.
Okay. Okay, so of course there are many terminologies like the well-being, like the quality of life, like sustainability. So all these are really very like satisfaction, like meeting the needs. I think what is really important for the people is being fulfilled with their needs. So they need services, they need work, they need a good house, a good community to live in. So they need this. So whether this is provided or not, this can tell you if the happiness can be really happening or not, or sustainability can be happening or not. And it is very much related to awareness, as I said, and it is very much related to education and to the generation. So let me very quickly tell you that we did a very interesting survey among school children aging from 8 to 16. The majority were from 11 to 13, asking them if they heard about climate change and if they heard about sustainability. And let me tell you that more than 50% heard about climate change either in school or on TV or in media, social media. And less than 1% heard about the word sustainability. So if we want now really to focus on sustainability, which is very essential for climate change as well, I think we need to have this more awareness among people and among students in schools, in universities, in everywhere.
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask Engineer Amr a question, and if we can take that same question to Dr. Hind and Ms. Victoria. Do you have a methodology? Do you have some kind of science behind the whole concept we're working on?
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Like when you talk to Dr. Sahari, she's an architect. She care about human. She knows what to do as an architect for human, like at the best way. But also happiness is like a specialist. So you need to get some people have the science of happiness. As she said that happiness is not relevant. It's not, for me, another than you. Everyone has his own happiness, but also there is a science for that. There is a science how to deal with that and how to deal with each gender and how to do it. So what we did is using that science was delivering happiness. That's a company in the United States, and we collaborate together for now like 6-7 years, just to every single point, every single action, and how to relate it to real estate and experience. And we have also Callison RTKL, which is a big firm in the United States, and a game loft from France, to come all together and do the model. How can you design with happiness? Because it's designed for well-being. You can call it happiness, you can call it satisfaction. It's not the name is the important. It's the important how to use the science behind it and make it like a formula how to do it. Because if it's not a formula, you'll not succeed to achieve your goal.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I think I have a very strange question to Dr. Hind, taking it forward. Dr. Hind, you know a lot about legislations and regulations and laws and everything. And you work for the Scientific Research Center, basically, of National Research Center for Housing and Building. So do you think that in some way, you can have an act or a bill, a law, that could represent happiness in a building in Egypt, maybe?
when we are talking about law, maybe you can ask Dr. Sahar, yani she's the right person here. But I will reflect firstly, yani, from my point of view, happiness is happening when we find the solution that will be able to resolve the challenges that we are facing, and at the same time creating a better quality of life. And it differs from country to country, and also from a city to a city. So the main core is to study the lifestyle of each people that we are creating this buildings or a city for. Taking on consideration that يعني I like one statement that we are creating our building and our buildings creating us again. So there is a psychological aspects affecting us. So when we are talking about the law, يعني let's start from where we can يعني try to push for such a law. يعني it's not a law, but taking in consideration in, let's say, in our regulations, in our building codes, in our right now we are working on a code for the green for sustainable cities. So maybe it will be part of this code, happiness. Like right now we have a code for the quality of life, but till now it's not يعني يعني it needs let's say faster steps to يعني to be discussed with the real estate and with the citizens themselves to approve such a code and to issued by a ministerial decree. Maybe we can push it through the Green Building Council, which was and Sustainable Cities, which was formulated last July, in, as Egypt is hosting COP27, and we have specific and specialized committee. So maybe we can push to engage such value of happiness or meaning of happiness on all the categories that we are working on. We are talking about sustainable cities, usually are saying energy efficiency, water efficiency, sustainable site, indoor environmental quality. We have to add the happiness and the quality of life in such categories and to engage it in what we will publish it or issue through the Ministry of Housing and all the other stakeholders, taking into consideration that for the first time, this Green Building Council and Sustainable Cities will engage the private sector in the committees because they are part of the deal. We will not be able to rely on the implementation of the government, but the private sector and all the stakeholders should working together to realize such kind of happiness and quality of life in all our buildings and cities.
Okay, an extension question, if I may ask. How do you measure happiness?
How do يعني it's يعني it's subjective. يعني it depends on the survey. I think Mountain View, maybe they have such survey to the citizens. From my experience, we succeeded to create sustainable building for CIB, the Commercial International Bank, and after that we tried to see what is the impact of such green building on the employee themselves. So we create a survey with a specialized experts, and we try to see is this affecting the productivity of the employee? Are they more happier when they are in such a building than the other buildings? And we find very positive feedback from the employee, and they said all of them wants to move and transfer from the other branches to this green building. For that, we repeated for two other buildings to have such quality of buildings and they enjoying their life. For example, they have a gym in the basement of the building and such kind of recreation that we really need in our work, and we can find it in Europe and in the States, but we cannot find it in Egypt.
Okay, very good. Dr. Sahar?
I just want to add about how you measure happiness.
Okay.
So getting back to this word report about happiness, they have indices. They have happiness index. And of course, they have many index that are measurable. But let me tell you, for example, they have life evaluation. They have they detect the positive emotions, the negative emotions. They, for example, the trust in the government is one of the index.
Trust.
Sense of community, sense of belonging of the community is one of the things. So the income, income versus the lifestyle, is it enough for them or no? And the services, of course, that are around. So they have this word report. They use specific index to measure happiness.
So it's measurable.
It is measurable.
measurable.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is measurable, but it depends. Some are qualitative, some are quantitative.
Okay.
Always the qualitative are less efficient, while of course the quantitative are really accurate and
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Ms. Victoria?
Yeah, I really was going to ask you actually about the qualitative versus quantitative, because we're human beings after all, right? The most of the photos that you showed in your presentation had people in them, right? But we all like different things. I choose to live in a very rural location in central France, and to me that's happiness. But some people might prefer to have a gym in their building. I certainly don't. I think my closest gym is about half an hour away. Some people might want to be within walking distance of a school. So the challenge here is that there are different measures of happiness. Even within those indicators, the human element is difficult to measure, and there is a scale against the different things that we choose to interact with on a daily basis. The challenge that we also have, of course, I work on a program called Advancing Net Zero at the World Green Building Council, which is about climate action. My personal view is that you shouldn't know that you're in a green building. It should just be a building, and it should enhance you as a person. It should enhance your health. It should be a nice place to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be smart. In fact, some of the nicest buildings I've been in are definitely not smart. Some of the worst buildings I've been are smart. So, it really depends. But the difference is that you put people in that building and it affects the carbon emissions. The building does, after it's built, doesn't generate emissions on its own. It's the people element. And that's really difficult to measure. It's hard to measure from a consumption point of view, and it's even harder to measure from a happiness index point of view. But, we can do the best we can to make sure we're ticking as many of those boxes as possible.
Okay, but again, advancing net zero. Do you think there's any direct relation between being happy in a building and having less carbon emissions?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and one that we grapple with a lot at the World Green Building Council. So my work is in climate action, but as World GBC, we believe that buildings should enhance your quality of life, and that sustainable development is holistic, that you shouldn't focus on one and negate the other or ignore the other. We have 3 impact areas that we think we need to focus on to completely transform the building and construction sector, and those are climate action, health and well-being, and resources and circularity. And we have to address all of them together. It's not a case of a choice. We actually released a framework for health and well-being in 2020, which set out some measures that you can take to improve the indoor quality of a building, the way that a building enhances health, like some of the features that we've mentioned, but also how a building can enhance social value all the way through the value chain, and climate action. It's a specific section within a health and well-being framework because the two go hand in hand. You imagine the challenge of increasing air quality by increasing the amount of air change rates and flows through a building that has an energy component. So the two need to be considered together. They're not mutually exclusive. You can achieve both.
Okay, very good. So I think could we say that by now we've reached a statement that a healthier human being or a more happy human being is a more aware and a more sustainable, efficient human being? Do we all agree on that now? No? Yeah? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I want to give a comment on what we said because it was very valuable words. When we talk about, like Dr. Saharwin said that she asked a lot of people in the school about sustainability and green, and the answer in sustainability was 0. Why? Because everyone all the time looks what's in for me. It has to be related. And I asked many people had lead in their building among the world. It's the platinum lead and golden lead. And I asked people working in that building, do you know that your building is a LEED certified and it's a platinum one or golden one or silver one? He doesn't know a thing about it because it's all about the building. It's coming again, it's all about me, it's not the building. Because when I agree with Victoria, yes, we have to focus of everything, but the issue here is, where is the center? If we make the center the building, or the title is the building all the time, like Dr. Anwar we talk about the water, and talk about electricity, because it's much easier, because you can measure it. But yes, it is a challenge, because humans are much difficult than the water and electricity, but they are the core of everything. So if we neglect them, if we not make them in the middle, in the center, we will not reach our goal, because you spend a lot of money to have a LEED certificate, and all the people using that building is not enjoying that. So if you do like a happy building, it's like, because we work on that survey for 5 years with a lot of people, like LEED, like we are not shy about happy, because whenever we go in any exhibition, like in Buma Real Estate and MEPM and everything, we talk about happiness. We have the same discussion, because but it has basics. Because if I took you to the Maslow, like the basic need was just safety and belonging, and then self-esteem, and then that's what we were. Because in France, different than Egypt, but safety for everybody is safety, relation for everybody is relation. So how can we translate relation and belonging for people, even and like their ability is like $100, and people like have like $1 million. It's the same. How to create the community for belonging, for self-esteem, and make you ambitious, and how to make a purpose for your life. That's what we do, is how to make you all the time, and how to measure it with that measurement. Because we are all agree that if I ask this room, if I go to every single part in the world, safety is number one. So if you're not safe, I'm not talking. That's just, if something will run. And self-esteem, and then that's why. So we got the Barrett model. I don't know we are familiar about Barrett model, but Barrett model had the 7 levels, and we work it with delivering happiness and the real estate and the art, and measure it. And we have, yes, we are in the first stage, but at least we have that first step. So that's our idea, is how all of us to join, because all the experience, I think we have it all, but how not to be shy about happiness, because this is normally. I was talking about something very nice, like last panel, but I will complete it again. One of my friend, when we were preparing for Buma Real Estate, and his son was in Canada in school, and the principal asked him what you will do in your life, and he's preparing a big thing about him, and asked him to like write 4 papers about your dreams and the guy the boy come after 4 days with 1 word. And the principal called my friend and said, he make me like in a mess and change all the program. The word was happy. I want to be happy. And because Generation Z, which is coming, will not accept what happened before. They are now need like, what's the target? They are now need faster way of getting the goal. So they will not wait, or you have to work and work hard, and then you will be happy. And they want to be happy. I think most of us see them like unfocused, and I see that also, but they are very simple. They want the simple thing. Where is the happiness? That's what we have to go. So I think, and COVID and everything now is happening, is making us to fast speed for us, not for the building, because we go around. It's like you go and have a car, and you go have a job, and you go to be a CEO, and but all of that for what? For just simple thing. It's not a luxury to be happy. We are all like this.
Okay, thank you. So I've been thinking about one thing through all this presentation till now. How do we scale the whole thing? I mean, this is a very good experience But from what I think, it's the exercise we're doing at Mountain View is for Mountain View. So how do we apply the same experience for cities or districts, or I mean bigger scales? Again, we agree on the concept of happiness, but we don't know what makes me happy against what makes you happy, right? So my question is, can we take this exercise or this experience and make it on a bigger scale?
Here يعني we shouldn't take copy and paste, because copy and paste is not a solution, but it's the methodology.
Yes.
How they work on the methodology. And here I can remember my experience with Oroville. Oroville, it's a sustainable city in India. It's famous by يعني approved by UNESCO. And we had a workshop there about sustainable cities, sustainable solutions. And I can remember that the most important issue is to engage the citizen or the people in the design process, and to understand how they are thinking about their house, their home, their garden, their shopping mall, and everything, to be part of the process. Because as you said, what makes you happy will not, will not make me happy. So it's very important to understand you are designing for whom, what is their beliefs and culture, what is their values. It's very important to understand the citizens or the people, so you will be able to make them happy. And we can understand that in year one in the Faculty of Engineering, the basic that we are starting to understand and to learn is to understand the people. We are designing for whom, to understand the functions, how they are thinking, how they are يعني, making their daily life issues. So يعني, from my point of view, we cannot copy and paste, but we should focus on the methodology.
But you can develop the methodology. I mean,
Exactly.
it is developed. The
Yes.
concept is agreed on if it's developed towards specific cultures and societies and income levels and everything, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And here we should integrate that in the roadmap on 17th. The Ministry of Housing will announce about the presidential initiative for sustainable resilient cities. So should be integrated in this initiative.
Yeah. Would you like to say something?
Yes, since you mentioned the word culture, and I think happiness is very much related to culture, because you have a scope, you have a spectrum, and this is where you live, and this is where you experience your life. You go to school, you have your services. But I want to give an example related to sustainability, culture, regulations also. I was recently in Kigali in Rwanda, and I found out that I mean, this was the first African city that I see so clean, so neat. And I asked why this happened. So they said the society was not responding to cleanliness, to green cities, and so they wanted to shift the culture to another standard. And what they did is, the first thing, they put rules, awareness first, they give awareness, and then they put rules, and then they follow up the rules, and they punish the one who is not responding to the rules. And they did this for some time, and at the end, it became a culture to keep the city clean, to keep the city sustainable, and so they work in recycling. They have green city trees. Their consumption is very much moderated, and so on. So if you are telling me what we did or what you did in Mountain View, and people are happy there, and you used some of the checklists to achieve in the community, is it possible to do this in other communities? So okay, let's see, maybe in compounds it will not be a big difference, unless maybe the accessibility to services and to schools, to shopping areas. But otherwise, if we talk about social housing that the government is doing, or about unplanned areas or informal, you have here to again a tailor-made checklist. You have to see where is the spectrum, where they want to move from A to B, from A to C, or from A to W. So it's, you know, a spectrum, and it depends on what are their expectations, what their aspirations. So it is scalable, of course, and you can use some of it, but in a different scale, because what they want. And let me give you a very simple example. When you move people from informal areas to a better planned areas, not all of them are happy, because, but regarding the well-being, they are all in a better well-being community. They are all in a better condition, health condition, more healthy, more clean, and maybe also they have jobs, and they have houses, they have gardens, green areas, but they might not be happy because of the social ties. And this is what we say about people-centered. They lost their neighbors, they need to be in another place. So here happiness is different from sustainability and from the well-being. And this is where you have to be very careful about the needs and what they are expecting, and so on.
Okay, very good.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Victoria?
Yeah, thank you. So you asked about scale, and I think we can't achieve what we're trying to achieve at scale without also thinking about the existing communities. Like, I really love your story because it's applying it to a community that already exists and already has a lot of habits and processes ingrained. So it's possible to change an existing community, right? For some people, happiness might be affording to heat or cool their homes. So, you know, applying this methodology or context to how do we improve the existing homes and communities and schools that we're in to bring these elements of happiness, as well as applying them to newer developments, which is of course a lot easier because you can incorporate lots of different measures and some of the things in the checklist. It's harder, but absolutely necessary to go back in and do it to existing communities and existing homes, because from a carbon perspective, for people seeking to improve happiness and a better way of life and having to move to a new development or you know, move out of a community is not the optimum solution. It's not the right outcome. So I'm sort of curious to know, or maybe it's a question to the other panelists, about how we can also encourage applying these concepts into existing communities as well.
Okay. Engineer Amr, do you think it's the process, the design process you've been through on Mountain View, is it applicable in different scales? Because obviously the panel more or less says yes. And I would be curious to have a success story of Mountain View being applied on a much bigger scale, on the city scale maybe, or district or something like that.
Yeah, I think we are all agree that it's not about like one model, because if it's became like one model, it's against happiness, because we will be boring. It's not Mountain View model. It's Mountain View has the purpose. We are written to all of us. We are 1,500 employee, and we live it, not just say it. Bring land to life and delivering happiness. So it's very simple. So all what we think about it is how to make the right methodology and for everybody. But as I'm talking to many architects, she's like my professor or something like this, Dr. Sahar. But when she's do like civil engineer, she got a civil guy. So it's the same. If you need like when we talk about happiness, it has two things. Something we all agree, like Maslow model, which is the basic need, which is like, as I said, like the belonging, and something about the culture. It goes together. So some like we all agree that safety and Maslow is for all of us the same, but the same in France, not like in Egypt, not like in Africa. So that's the culture part. So we blend of like some fixed fixed or fundamentals with the culture, which is many changes, and that's make it beauty, because I don't want to hear travel to France and make it like in Egypt, and travel to Africa. That's a boring word. We need an excitement. It's against the methodology is put like for we have already that methodology. I said it's 5 years work with many people around the world to make this methodology. And the day one we think about it is how to be applicable for everyone. But is it on the track or not? Because if you're not take it as a science or on the track, if you don't use like the civil engineer or the like electromechanic engineer, it's the same. It's the main core of everything. We do that for that, and it's a specialized. So you need to get the culture one, and you understand the culture, understand the basic need, and blend it together. And then you go to the architect, and he will, create a beautiful one. But it's come not from a legend of doing like the best city or the biggest city or the highest city. As you said, in the school of architect, you learn on the beginning that the people are number one. And when you graduate, you learn how to make the legend building. That's what happened. The ego is coming, and that's what happened. And we forgot that we build it for people, and we have to ask them first, because maybe you do something very nice, but it's not fit for me. That's so we did it for the city. We have the model of the methodology. And to give example, how can we did it, and we separated like the hardware and the software, like the technology companies, because technology companies again is very advanced, so we have to follow their foot on that technology. So to give example, like one of like application, what we did in iCity is when we do like 4 dimension, which is the hardware, we make the city in 4 dimension. So dimension for the roads, dimension for the service, it's an underground, and dimension for the parks, and dimension for the pedestrian, which is make it the first pedestrian city. You can move to the city, which is 500 acres, same size like Monaco, without crossing one single street. You cannot meet one car, and you can touch every single point in the city. So that's coming from what? Coming from Egypt, because driving in Egypt is like crazy. So when we ask all the group, we want to separate, and we have a car free. So sometimes the need, like Dr. Sahar, when we said the need is coming from there. When we have our colleagues like Callison Artikel, which is an architect, and we said we want people without crossing, they send us to many countries in the United States. And again, we found the streets, and you have to cross it. I said, it's okay, you can cross the street. We said, no, come to Egypt, and you see how we drive, and then you understand what we talk about. So when they come, they understand what we talk about. So we managed to solve it as from this culture, this some efficient of how we drive. So we make it like a challenge, and because the center of that was the human or the people, so that's make us to make a car-free city. So challenges make it in a good way. That's from the hardware part. And after you finish the hardware, you go to the software, and how not to make, like when we see the photos, we'll talk about the cities. It's not about the greenery or to have very nice view. No, how to make every single point as an experience, bike or have how to get out of your mobile and out of the bubble and to live your life. That's a big challenge. And if we don't do it now, people will be now you go now to any classroom, and I ask about that in many schools, and you found like the classroom is 30 people in the classroom, 30, and you ask about how many people are ADHD, it's like 25. And they're not like ADHD. They are people now that not want to stay in the school for 8 hours, and they want to use the mobile. They are very active and and dynamic. So you cannot do what you do before. We have to change, because everything is changing.
Okay, very good. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to link the happiness to your question, whether it is applicable on cities and what scale.
Okay.
Of course, when you design a compound or a place like Mountain View, you have a kind of expected clients. And therefore, you can expect also what can make them happy. and you have this, idea about, it's like a checklist, as I said, and they need greens, they need safety, they need a nice clubhouse and swimming pool, they need maybe something for the kids, and so on. But when you work on the city scale, you don't know who are your clients. You have a very diversified clientele, people that may, and the people who are using the city. So even if you go to, old valuable districts, like Maadi, Zamalek, Masr Gedida, it's different than
Yes.
going to Shobra, Muhandisin, downtown. So there it is more difficult to expect the criteria to um, to be able to really
Yes,
reach the
definitely.
happiness of all the users, because they are very diversified and their expectations is different. Some people wants to be near the shops, others want to be near restaurants, others want to be near the club, others want to be overlooking the night. But when you so it's always not easier in Mountain View. It's not easier because you are also have competitors, and here you measure your happiness versus your competitors, which is sometimes not very easy, but also at least you know your parameters. So this is the difference between.
Okay.
So you have really to come back to the checklist and to come back to the indicators, and you have to have if you take the SDGs, for example, and you are trying in Mountain View to implement the SDGs, you have 17 goals, but you have also some areas that you are not touching, like life under the water, things like that are not really concerned with you. But you have overall 230 indicators for the SDGs. Maybe you want to just implement 10, 20, 15, and this will make your client happy, and you know that. But when you go to another area, you will pick other 10 or other 20 from the SDGs. So you have different indicators, and you can achieve happiness also in the city, but with the main methodology, but not with the same indicators.
Yes,
Okay?
yes, I understand. Totally understand. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, exactly, Dr. Saha. Like what we said is when we have the experience, we went to or our colleagues in Irvine in California, which is a very nice place. And the issue is, and also in our compounds, some compounds we did like a very beautiful like clubhouse, and same happened in Irvine, and very nice greenery, but people were not playing because it's not about rich or poor. It's about, did you do the right software for them to get out of their, maybe in some places they are much richest, they are shy, or they have their own mensch, then they have their own house, you don't want to go. It's not about rich or poor. It's about to understand each part. That's why we said the methodology is like fixed, but the culture is different, and how to make the right software. And also definitely for people like in the new city, it's much easier than when you do like old cities, because as you agreed, you are living in Zamalek. So if I come and go the people in Zamalek, and like your neighbors and your friends, and I ask them, the people from Zamalek from like many years, and they defend Zamalek to be a nice place, they have like very common things. So we have to defend them. We have to give them what they want. And what they want is different than another part they want. So therefore, they get in the street, and therefore they use their self and experience, and therefore they defend their culture and became like a happy culture. But if they stay in the and complaining and blaming everybody, it's like Zamalek will lost and Zamalek will be not Zamalek. It will end up, you will move from that, because so that's the methodology, is get out of your house. That's your house, your neighborhood. Defend it, not in in muscles, but defend it in a culture. Defend your culture. Go and and play what you want to play. That
Okay, so I'd like to. Have we got any questions on the floor? Because we've got a second presentation. Anyone got any questions? Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I should not intervene, I know. But three things very quick. First of all, the beauty of what you are talking about is that it's very genuine. So it creates a lot of food for thoughts. And why this is the case? This is the case because we are talking, I will start from your point, which is we are talking about sustainability, which is bringing again a holistic approach. And putting a holistic approach means that we will need to do some integration between material sciences and social sciences, which is a very difficult thing to do. Material sciences are de facto sciences. And by being de facto, 1 plus 1 will always be equal to. In human sciences, it's very difficult because human behavior change not only between people, but even between people from one situation to another and from one time to another. The cities that may be a city of happiness for young generations could turn to be a city of lack of happiness for older generations, correct? It changes even with time. But we are trying to do some sort of amalgamation or integration between a static concept and static science and a dynamic concept that changes over time. And this is the beauty of the issue. And this is something that can open door towards social sciences integration afterwards. Somehow this will bring a lot of doors. And that's why this panel is genuine from the approach that you are putting on the table. This is number one. Number two, you mentioned, I talked about, I don't like to say about a certain building that it's a sustainable building. I'm in agreement with you. But what I am suggesting and recommending definitely is to term an unsustainable building unsustainable. I think this would assist people to take the other option. So in the past, we were saying, I'm predicting that this is what will happen. We are talking sustainable finance, which is different than we are saying finance and sustainable finance. And I'm pushing banks to say finance and non-sustainable finance. This will assist a lot of people to move towards more this issue. A third thing, and the final thing, I was doing some econometric studies on the housing in Berlin. In Berlin, they were taking taxes on buildings, new buildings, in terms of apartments. But I suggested to them to take the price of the apartments and to build compounds for the poor rather than giving them housing. This would be built more compounds. And the answer came to me, this will do some sort of social segmentation between rich and poor. Therefore, we will create a lot of cultures in our city. And this is something we don't want it to happen. Unfortunately, this is the real challenge with Egypt right now. While we are talking, and this was mentioned by your esteemed self, when you talked about different cultures. In fact, this is what is in Egypt. Even if I am living in Mountain View, and I'm happy living in Mountain View, nobody can ignore that I'm passing through the ring road on Duea. And this impact me, despite that I close my eye. Because this falls in my back end, because this is part of my social responsibility. End of day, as human, we are thinking sustainability not only intergenerational, but also intra-generational. And this is something that we need to consider. Thank you for opening the floor for all these thoughts, and sorry for being long. Thank you.
Okay, have we got another question? Yeah, go ahead.
What was the question? As a comment, okay. Okay.
My question is for Dr. Sahar. What is the role of academia and different research centers, and what is the role they are playing to link the human and people well-being to climate change and sustainability in terms of awareness, maybe actions need to be taken? What is going on now?
Yeah, I will start, and then maybe for the research centers, Hind can answer. Of course, education and the university and working on the scale of students. I am talking, of course, about the architectural department in Cairo University, but I know also what is happening elsewhere a little bit. Yeah, that try to link, climate change. We have, for example, we have two very important researches that were done in Rashid, also in Cairo, about climate change and the effect on human. the problem is not linking climate change to the community or to people, because this happens actually even during education, in projects, in workshops. The problem is how the government or the different ministries can take advantage of the researches that are done, even in HBRC, anywhere. There is a big gap between what students learn and what is done in universities and policies and decision making. And this gap is always there. And I think our main task now, even I mean international wide, in the International Parliamentarian Union, is how to link the sciences to policies, and how science can inform policy and decision making. And this is really is a big target, and if we achieve this, then we have reached. But linking the policies to the decision making and to the welfare of the community through the different ministries, it is really a hard task. And even scientists themselves, you have the scientists as basic sciences, like for physics, chemistry, biology, and human sciences are different, and they work each on his own, and they don't have a common language yet. And we need to link human sciences to the basic sciences. And this, like, climate change can really get some good inputs and some outcomes from sciences related, to the decarbonization, CO2, renewable energy. These are all comes from the essence of basic sciences. But how to link them to the human sciences? This is another issue. But we will try to work on it, I promise.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you have a question? Can we?
Hi. Sorry. Sorry. Excuse me, I'm Melia from Decarbon. I have a question for Dr. Hind Farouk. I wanted to ask you an update on the building codes, if they are going to be published, and what are their scope, how they are going to approach happiness and sustainability. And also, if you can tell us how are you going to implement them, because it's the biggest challenge in Egypt on the codes. Thank you so much.
As Dr. Sahar said, that there is a gap between the implementation, research, and codes. Regarding the codes, we already have energy efficiency building codes, which was issued in 2005. So more than 15 years now. We have recent codes for the water recycling, water desalination, waste management for the construction and for the solid waste. All these codes actually is already exist, and what we are trying right now is to integrate them in the roadmap, which is the ministry working on in the new initiative, and to try to gather all of these codes in one code called the Green Building Code, because it doesn't make sense that if you will work on a green building or a sustainable city or whatever, you will try to find what is exist in the energy efficiency code, what is exist in the water, what is exist in the waste management. So this is what we are trying right now, to gather all these efforts in one code. And I think now we are in COP27, and we will have the World Urban Forum in 2024. So I think within the next 2 years, many issues will happen to make it all what we are talking about real, to show the world that what we talked about it in COP27 already existing in the ground in 2024. I hope so, inshallah. But here it's important to say that implementation, as I said in the beginning, is not related only to the government, is related to the government and linked with the private sector. And as Dr. Sahat said that there is a gap between the decision makers and the research, and also with the private sector and the research. We need to gather all these efforts in one line to be able to implement it on the ground.
Okay, thank you. Because we're running out of time, we'll take one more question. Then I've received some questions that I need to actually ask. So we'll take your question, then I'll take things back.
My question is to Victoria. Do you see the commitment to the to Africa and Egypt and the South projects is applicable? And because I heard everyone is scared to commit and then fail. So what's your input about that?
I think that's not unique to Africa and the MENA region. We find that in lots of different parts of the world. And yes, it is scary because the level we have to lift from where we are now to where we need to get to based on what the science is telling us is massive. And in many countries in Africa and where we're expecting development to happen between now and 2050, there aren't any building codes, let alone building codes with the level of ambition that we need. So it means that the leap from where we are now, or what was allowed to be built, what people are comfortable with what we're calling for, is very high. And my belief is actually exactly what we've just heard. There's a lot of power in the private sector demonstrating what's possible, and we can't expect regulation to come until we're proving what's possible. And I've come here to Egypt to talk about other examples from around the world, and I've learned a huge amount about what's already happening in Egypt, what's already happening in Africa. There are already net zero buildings here. There's already developments that are helping improve human health and happiness. So it's now about the scale question. So I would prefer to see people taking action without a commitment than not taking any action at all. But the commitment is there to recognize that there is momentum from the private sector and call on the necessary investment from the finance community, the frameworks from regulation to help us achieve those goals. Because one company making a commitment, they can't achieve it on their own.
Okay, very good. I'm getting some questions, by the way, but there's this one, I think it's a common question. It's about the concept you've got of 4D. What's it about? And how do you think we can take it forward, again, on different scales and districts and so on?
I think in your comment, I like the way you said it. It's better just one step than nothing. So, and when we said about the whole world, to solve all the whole world, it's very difficult. So what we believe on that, let's have the first step, and as a private sector, let's do it. Because actually on the business side, before I explain what happened, what we did is getting really a lot good in this business side, because even in COVID, we double and triple our business in the same time. And it's COVID's happened, and we are doubling the business. So now, if any one of us put in Google how Wellbeing business growing, how Wellbeing now, it's a $360 billion business. So Wellbeing is #1 business growing. And I think, and after COVID, and after people, and after the wake-up call for the world, don't be like as is. We have to change. So we need, when we think about change, is first to change here, not change outside, and not to make it a big thing or talking about the city or the world, just one move, one good move from each one, it will, it will give us the snowball effect. But what we have to start.
I completely agree with you. And I think it's, what the gentleman said earlier about the different generations. We need to know that what we're building today is still going to be desirable in the future. Yep. And so the investments today cannot be considered on cost alone. We have to consider the social impact. We have to consider social value and the broader value proposition. Could you sell, are you really backing that what you're building today could be sold in the future with the changing dynamics and changing expectations? Think about if you could sell something think about if you could sell something in 5 years' time. 5 years ago, we didn't know about COVID. So this is like how scary that timeline is, because we're trying to think about the future and what future generations might value.
Yeah.
And that's different to what even very recently we valued.
Yeah, I also agree with you, and I want to add of that. We are an organic person.
Yeah.
We want to be changed
Yeah.
life is changed day and night. And that's God make lives is all to give us one message. It's not fix it. You have to change it.
We know about, for example, modular homes
Yeah.
that can be added to as your family grows.
Yeah.
So you don't have to
Yeah.
leave your
Yeah.
home
Yeah.
as your family grows, and the
Yeah.
home adapts with you. You're not forced into a situation where you have to apply for a mortgage or make the savings, because you have that asset, you have that value already in your home, and it changes with your life rather than being the static thing
Yeah.
that someone
Yeah.
built once.
You know why you did this example? Why you said this example? And it's like remarkable example, because it's a human way.
It's the human
It's
way.
a human.
Yeah.
It's
We're not
whatever come from human will be in a good way.
Yeah.
Whatever come on a fixed, like materialized world
Yeah.
will be like absolute.
If you think about
Everything
like
is human. Will keep
keep
like
evolving.
keep moving and growing like trees. Trees
Yeah.
are much better than 40, 50 years than trees. I don't believe like older Z. I can deal with Z generation very well, by the way, because I don't deal with them as I'm a big and they're small. This is the ego number one. So we are applicable. So we have to make cities also are applicable for ideas, and don't make it, because when you do the lovely city or the biggest or the highest, it will not achieve, because someone will broke your number. The number is, don't make it like think, make it a platform, and everybody change it.
Yep.
And that's make the trees better, the flowers better. So that's the methodology also, is not to fix think, because you don't know anything. You just be a platform.
If you provide a solution for today's economy, it can only survive in today's economy.
Exactly.
Yes, I think the whole concept of sustainability is about that. I mean, you're not just providing a solution for today, you are providing the concept. So people change and progress with time. Yes.
You know, Ahmed, and I don't like to say anywhere, I don't ever say sustainability. I always say sustainable development, because it has to be developed all the way. If you said sustainability, no one can sustain anything. But what you can do is sustain, develop. And when you have sustain, develop, you will be on the right track. So
you have to keep on changing. You have to keep on progressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talking about the 4D, I think it's like a little presentation. It's because it's a new thing. It's as I said, it was hardware that we make. Like, maybe you can explain it.
Yes.
You want me to explain the 4D?
Yes, if you could explain the 4D.
Put it here, or I explain it to them?
Let's put it on the presentation.
It's much better, because it's like, visual will help me a little. You can see that's okay. You're part of the 4D. We are 4, by the way. Yes. No, it's okay. That's the flowers on the screen. It's like 1 minute, 2 minutes.
It's almost 3 minutes. Yeah. I think we can take an extra 5 minutes or so. Yeah.
I think what we want to talk, it's like an example. That's the first step we did, like to make the city in a different way, make the coordination in a way, make that. What we have here, the coordination is like, and this city is like 15 kilometers, like Alexandria coordination. It can provide you, that's the biggest balcony, I think, in the world, because it's coming all over the parks, and you can touch every point without crossing one street, and that's make it like beautiful, especially in Egypt. Actually, in any planning, I think Dr. Sahar agreed with me that in any planning of city, you will find like the streets and the roads like 20 to 30% of the whole area. What we did here, we make the roads like 10%. So it managed that more greenery, and less pollution. And also because the journey of the cars is less more, but also you can go anywhere with the car. So you got the function of touch every single point with the car, but with less roads. So the roads became like less and the greenery became like higher. It's only because when we start about how to serve the human. It's not a super idea. It's like the methodology led us to give them, and the need of not to have the car. So that's number one. When you start to think, it's not the genius in that, the genius in the methodology. So I think Dr. Sahar will, the architect will all the time create and like we talk about the trees and make it much beautiful. But if you don't have the methodology, you will end up as we go. I think that's it.
Okay, I want to ask Dr. Sahar something. The idea of the 4D, is it in any way applied or already done somewhere? Any studies, any?
Well, actually, I have other ideas related to the accessibility, but on the scale of the city. Like, for example, the 15-minute city, which Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris, won the elections with the idea. She came up with the concept, and she won the elections.
But what is it? I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, it is like how to reach all what you need in the primary services and primary needs in 15 minutes walk,
Okay.
and then or 15 minutes biking, a higher level of service, or 15 minutes riding a car for city. But this is for a city. It's not the idea of having the enclosure of a community, really gated community, as they say. And I know that gated communities have been always an issue in Egypt for philanthropists, but I think it makes people happy. I mean, my daughter lives in a gated community and she's very happy. She feels secure, she feels safe, and this is what is it. But the 15-minute city is a new also concept. It's not a new concept, actually. It started in 2016, even before COVID. But she used it, the mayor of Paris used it during COVID, because it was how people can access their needs and their services. So maybe in the next step for Mountain View is to see how people will get from Mountain View to their primary services also in 15 minutes. And that would raise, so you will have a 5th D now instead of the 40. Yeah, thank you.
We'll have the copyright for Sahar. Okay.
Okay, so time is over, unfortunately. I could go on for another hour or so. So just closure statement, if in 1 minute from each of the panelists. Dr. Hind.
The final statement is we should try to find a methodology to include all people in this quality of life that we are talking about.
Okay. Ms. Victoria?
And I guess mine's obvious. I'll say the synergies between happiness, healthiness, and climate action.
Okay. Dr. Sahar, please.
To thank you and this opportunity of knowing more of Mountain View, and really to rethink for your next step as the well-being with happiness, with sustainable development. All this, I think, will generate new indicators for you to work and for the well-being of Egypt, of course. Thank you.
Engineer Amr, do you have a plan to take it to a bigger scale?
Yeah, all our plan is very simple, is to use the science all the way and to have many partners and to be open for that panel, for everybody says as we are open to develop, because we are in a learning stage. We had the first step and we are not shy about it. We are very strong about it, and we will keep on moving on that side, I think, and everybody can try to help. I think if I ask before the panel, what about the happiness? And after the panel, I see that the faces became like, actually, because we talk about happiness, our faces became as different. So It's not luxury. That's number one need. So we need to go for it. So that's what we do.
Okay, thank you for everyone. Thank you for attending. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for your moderation, ya Ahmed. Thank you. Very
Thank you,
good.
Doctor.